Semiconductors, but the good news for companies like Apple is if you're building in the United States or have committed to build, without question committed to build in the United States, there will be no charge.
He was speaking at a White House event on Wednesday, where Apple promised to invest an additional $100 billion in the U.S., on top of the previously announced $500 billion. No specifics were given, though Trump did earlier signal that the levies on chips could come as soon as next week. With semiconductors being South Korea's second largest item exported to the U.S., Seoul's top office echoed remarks by Trade Minister Yo Han-gu that the country will not be treated less favorably than other nations.
Whether the levies be 100% or 200%, we have been promised the most favored nation status with regard to semiconductors and pharmaceuticals.
Last week, a framework trade deal was reached between Seoul and Washington that lowered the U.S. so-called reciprocal tariffs on South Korea to 15% in exchange for massive investment pledges by Seoul, as well as a promise for the most favored nation status on certain sector-specific tariffs. What lies ahead is how to fill in the details of the deal in time for the face-to-face meeting later this month at the top level involving President Lee Jae-myung and his U.S. counterpart, Donald Trump. Yoon-jung-min, Arirang News.
Now, despite government reassurances, concerns over the possibility of not being granted an exemption from the extra tariffs plan are spilling over to the local chip industry. Our Kim Bo-kyung has this report.
U.S. President Donald Trump's recent plan to impose tariffs on imported chips is putting South Korean manufacturers on edge. Semiconductors represent Seoul's second-largest export to the U.S. following vehicles, with shipments totaling more than $10 billion around 14.7 trillion Korean won last year. This accounts for a little more than 7% of the country's overall exports to the U.S. Although it seems small compared to Korea's exports to China or Hong Kong, it cannot be overlooked as a considerable amount of semiconductors are exported to the U.S. indirectly after being assembled or processed in countries such as Taiwan. When it comes to South Korean chip makers, Samsung Electronics is producing non-memory chips at its Austin plant in Texas and constructing a foundry in Taylor of the same state, while SK Hynix is to build a high-bandwidth memory packaging plant in Indiana. If Trump does acknowledge such investments already made, it is likely these chip makers would be exempted. However, if they become subject to the tariffs, they would suffer a substantial hit as most memory chips, DRAM and NAND, are being produced within the country as well as in China. Samsung produces memory chips in South Korea's Hwaseong, Pyeongtaek, and Xi'an in China, while SK Hynix is producing them in South Korea's Icheon and Cheongju and China's Wuxi and Dalian. Concerns are mounting, but one expert says it is unlikely the tariffs plan will be able to go as Trump said, as it could hurt industries and consumers in the U.S. as well.
The U.S. right now is investing substantially in AI and data centers, so their demand for semiconductors are very high. And if these companies cannot buy foreign-made semiconductors, these AI and data centers may not be built or their costs will go up substantially. So it will hurt not only American consumers and the IT industries, but they may fall behind in the AI race with China.
Meanwhile, Samsung Electronics shares closed at 70,500 Korean won on Thursday, up 2.47% following the news that Samsung would manufacture Apple's next-generation chips at its foundry plant in Texas, while SK Hynix rebounded during the day and closed at 262,000 Korean won after having dropped sharply early due to tariff concerns. Kim Bo-kyung, Arirang News.
South Korea has posted its largest monthly current account surplus on record, thanks to chips, pharmaceuticals, and dividend income. The news also came as the Deputy Prime Minister for Economy and Finance visited the Bank of Korea for the first time. Our Kim Do-yeon reports.
South Korea posted a current account surplus of $14.27 billion in June, the country's largest monthly surplus on record. According to the Bank of Korea on Thursday, the figure was fueled by strong semiconductor exports and a surge in dividend income. June also marked a surplus for the 26th consecutive month. Compared to May, the goods account surplus alone rose by $2.5 billion, helping push the first half total to $49.37 billion, the third highest first half figure in history.
This is the result of a sharp increase in the primary income account, driven mainly by dividend income, on top of a wider goods surplus due to a drop in commodity imports following lower oil prices.
In June, exports of semiconductors rose over 11%, while pharmaceutical shipments soared more than 50%. Much of the chip sales appear to have been front-loaded ahead of the U.S. tariffs taking effect. However, steel and automobile exports slipped, reflecting early pressure from the new tariff regime. Regionally, exports to the U.S. and China declined, while shipments to the EU and Southeast Asia posted solid gains. Despite concerns for other items due to tariffs, the Bank of Korea maintained a positive outlook for the current account in the near term.
As for semiconductors and pharmaceuticals, South Korea secured the most favorable terms under the agreement. So we're not likely to face disadvantages compared to other countries, nor see a significant drop in the competitiveness of our chip industry.
The news also came as the Deputy Prime Minister for Economy and Finance, Koo Yoon-chul, visited the Governor of the Bank of Korea, Lee Chang-yong, for the first time. Greeting the Deputy Prime Minister, the general touted the government's tariff deal with the U.S., saying it eased the burden for the central bank as well.
To be honest, from both my personal view and the Bank of Korea's perspective, the recent tariff agreement was handled well, and it has significantly eased the pressure going into our monetary policy meeting at the end of August.
The Deputy Prime Minister also said the decline in potential growth rate is due to a loss in the country's economic capability, adding, all economic players must work together to strengthen that capability. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
And the country's domestic consumption is starting to recover steadily, despite some concerns about economic uncertainty. Our Park Gon-woo has the details.
Steady signs of recovery in domestic consumption are becoming a reality in South Korea. That's according to the first economic ministerial meeting under the new Lee Jae-myung administration on Thursday.
After a long slump, consumption is starting to recover. Domestic demand is revitalizing thanks to efforts such as the Livelihood Recovery Consumption Coupons. Retail sales have turned upward for the first time in 4 months, and consumer sentiment is at its highest in over 4 years.
Koo also pledged to hold a series of large-scale consumption-boosting events each month until the end of the year, aiming to sustain the momentum. And to help non-capital regions struggling with challenges such as shrinking populations, the government plans to match them with entities, including central ministries, under a sisterhood program to promote tourism and local specialties. On Thursday, the state-run Korea Development Institute also echoed the positive signs in consumption in its August Economic Trends Report. It showed that consumption is partially improving, backed by declining interest rates, despite ongoing sluggishness in production, particularly in the construction sector. KDI also projected a more positive outlook thanks to consumption coupons distributed last month. However, the think tank also raised concerns of trade uncertainties linked to U.S. tariffs. While July's exports increased year-on-year, the state-run think tank attributed the rise to front-loaded shipments from markets including Taiwan and ASEAN ahead of new U.S. tariffs. Also on Thursday, Finance Minister Koo said the government will focus on a strategic transition toward a hyper-innovation economy, driven by rapidly evolving technologies. He said key sectors including AI will receive concentrated support to produce visible results in a short time. More specific strategies are set to be unveiled later this month. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
Here in South Korea, the number of shops that operate without any shopping assistance has dramatically increased since the early 2020s. Started as a new way to buy products without physical contact, the sector and business models are diversifying to meet the evolving needs of consumers. For more, we turn to our business correspondent, Park Junan. Welcome back, Junan.
Thank you for having me, Tami.
So, Junan, about these unmanned stores, what are they in detail and what sectors do they really cover?
Right, Tami. So just yesterday, I visited 3 shops that sold ice cream, fresh fruit, and pet supplies. What stood out was that they were fully operating without a shop assistant present. All I had to do was simply pick up the item, bring it to the counter, and scan the barcode. After scanning, I inserted my card, and the payment went through successfully. The types of unmanned stores I mentioned earlier are just the tip of the iceberg. Various sectors, industries that we could expect have embraced unmanned operations and are now seamlessly integrated into our daily lives. According to a survey by a credit card company here, the most common types of unmanned stores include ice cream shops, laundry shops, photo booths, study cafes, and packaged meal stores. Although estimates vary by institution, it is generally assumed that there are over 10,000 unmanned stores in the country now. From January 2020 through 2025, the number of unmanned stores grew 314%. It increased more than 4-fold from 2020 to 2023 and has remained steady for the last 2 years. Also, because unmanned stores have lower operating costs than traditional ones with fixed expenses, younger people are increasingly involved in starting unmanned businesses. Data shows that 30% of unmanned store owners are in their 20s or 30s, nearly double the 16% seen among owners of traditional stores.
Junan, I do have to say I go to these unmanned stores quite often, especially ice cream shops. Now, I heard that it's gaining more popularity, but what's behind that popularity, really?
That's right, Tami. For customers, the main reasons they visit unmanned stores are for their accessibility and reasonable prices.
Right.
Let's take a listen to what customers of an unmanned ice cream shop had to say about their shopping experience.
It's cheaper than convenience stores, and I like that I can pay on my own without waiting.
Since it's open 24 hours, I can stop by any time after studying near my academy, which I find really convenient.
A professor who focuses on consumer economics and policy said it's a win-win situation for store owners and customers.
Labor costs are rising, and consumers are not in a financially comfortable situation, so they tend to look for more cost-effective products. As businesses aim to reduce fixed costs, and consumers have become more accustomed to contactless services, they are less resistant to technology, and these 2 factors seem to have created a synergy.
So affordability, accessibility, and convenience, these are the reasons why consumers go to these unmanned stores. Now, what aspects of Korean consumer culture can we observe through this new trend?
Right, Tami. These unmanned businesses can only operate based on trust. From both the store owners and experts' perspectives, they say theft is rare, and this mutual trust between customers and sellers is often seen as a key driver behind the growth of unmanned businesses. Let's take a listen to what the owner of an unmanned ice cream store and a professor of consumer policy had to say about this.
The CCTV is running, and in most cases, people act honestly. Of course, there are occasional mistakes during checkout, but they're usually unintentional. Overall, people are very conscientious.
In Korea, there's a strong sense of ethics, even in coffee shops and other public places. People don't steal personal belongings, which foreigners definitely see as a positive aspect.
So sense of trust and ethics, notably, prominent here in South Korea. Now, these unmanned stores are really convenient and, they are amazing, but I'm sure they're not perfect at times. What are the prospects of these unmanned stores in Korea?
Yes, Tami. So an expert told me that this new consumer trend involving unmanned stores is a result of combined factors: technological advancement, efforts to reduce fixed labor costs, and a shrinking workforce due to low birth rates. While she said there's no immediate concern, the professor added that if larger corporations begin entering the unmanned store businesses, it could eventually impact the job market. Let's take a listen to what she said.
If unmanned stores are operated by large franchises or spread to large stores, there is clearly a possibility that this could affect employment in South Korea.
With lower operating costs, growing public trust, and consumers adapting to new technologies that change how we shop, unmanned stores may offer an early glimpse of what future retail markets will look like in the years to come.
Indeed, Junad, thank you so much for the interesting report tonight.
Thank you, Dami. It was a pleasure.
The special counsel team looking into the actions of former First Lady Kim Gun-hee requested an arrest warrant with a detention for her today, a day after questioning Kim over a series of allegations made against her. The team announced that it filed a request to the Seoul Central District Court at 1:21 p.m. Reportedly, the request was made on the grounds that Kim had denied all the accusations and posed a risk of evidence tampering. The special counsel is investigating Kim on 16 charges, including stock manipulation and election interference. Also, earlier in the day, the team made a second attempt to bring in her husband, former President Yoon Suk-yeol, for questioning. However, the effort was halted due to his firm refusal and concerns over possible injury. In other news, from groundbreaking new panels to the latest in automotive displays, you can explore the future technology at K-Display 2025. Our Moon Ji-young brings you all the highlights from this year's cutting-edge exhibition.
A glimpse of South Korea's latest display technologies. The 24th edition of the Korea Display exhibition, dubbed K-Display 2025, kicked off in Seoul on Thursday. At this internationally certified exhibition, domestic panel companies leading the OLED sector, along with a large number of domestic and international materials, parts, and equipment companies gathered to showcase the future direction of display technology. LG Display, an industry giant, unveiled its cutting-edge fourth-generation OLED TV panel. This panel stands out with an industry-first technology that independently stacks the three primary colors of light, pushing the boundaries with a stunning peak brightness of 4,000 nits. The company further showcased for the first time the world's fastest OLED monitor panel, which boasts an unparalleled refresh rate. LG Display is also highlighting its automotive display, which spans the entire width of the car in front of both the passengers and the driver's seats. This pillar-to-pillar display is poised to be the first of its kind to enter mass production in the industry. Another industry titan, Samsung Display, has taken the lead with its ultra-fine OLED on silicon, or OLEDOS products for XR devices, showcasing the expansive possibilities of ultra-high-resolution XR technology. The company also unveiled a groundbreaking 6,000-nit micro-LED for next-generation smartwatches. This is a significant leap, 2,000 nits brighter than the 4,000-nit watch micro-LED that Samsung Display showcased at CES 2025 just 6 months ago. All these display technologies are being showcased until Saturday in Seoul. More than 140 companies are participating in this year's event, which has attracted approximately 20,000 visitors. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy said the government will continue to provide policy support, including R&D investment and strengthening the competitiveness of the materials, parts, and equipment industry. Moon Ji-young, Arirang News.
South Korean football star Heung-min will now officially play for LAFC over the next 2 years, with the goal of leaving the club as a legend. Our Choi Soo-hyung tells us more.
At Heung-min's official Los Angeles FC signing press conference, LAFC supporters welcomed him with loud and powerful cheers. After 10 years with Tottenham Hotspur, Son officially joined LAFC on Wednesday local time. His new club described the South Korean national team captain as one of the most talented and popular Asian players in football history, while Tottenham bid farewell with a front-page message on its website. Heung-min says he came to Los Angeles with one goal: to win.
Obviously, I'm here to perform, but also that I want to give some advice to the young players that for improvement. So yeah, I can't just wait to see all the teammates and all the players that working together. So that's why we are here. So let's do it together, wins the trophy here.
It was also revealed that Sonny will wear the number 7 at his new club. Now set to play as LAFC starting forward, Son said the presence of the world's largest Koreatown in Los Angeles was one reason he chose the team. LAFC said Heung-min was signed as a designated player, exempt for the MLS salary cap through 2027, with an option to extend until June 2029. The club added that he will take up an international roster slot and will be eligible to play once he secures a U.S. work visa and an international transfer certificate. According to ESPN, LAFC is paying a transfer fee of around $26 million, setting a new Major League Soccer record and surpassing the previous record of $22 million set by Atlanta United when they signed Emmanuel Latte earlier this year. Son also becomes one of the highest-paid players in the MLS. Son is embracing his new start in the U.S. as another challenge, saying he wants to give back for everything he has received from the team and hopes to leave as a club legend. Choi Hyung, Arirang News.
The heat continues today, the season of Ipchu, which means the beginning of autumn on the traditional calendar. However, it is still hot across the country. With the heat wave advisories in place in 71 southern regions, the daytime temperatures reached 32 degrees in Seoul, Chuncheon, and Cheongju today. There will be no heat wave above 35 degrees Celsius like last week, but daytime temperature will continue to exceed 30 degrees Celsius in most regions for the time being. Meanwhile, the night heat will gradually start to cool as well. Seoul will see lows of 23 degrees tomorrow, and many areas will see below 25 degrees in the morning. Daejeon, Gwangju, and Daegu will start off at 22 degrees, Busan at 25 degrees. Highs move up to 31 degrees in Seoul, Chuncheon, Daejeon, and Busan, Jeju 30 degrees. Showers are forecast tomorrow on the East Coast. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That's all we have for tonight. I'm Kim Dami. For all of us here at Arirang, thanks for watching and good night.
그날은 역사 속 사건이 아니다. 두려움 앞에 멈추지 않는 태도이며 포기하지 않고 나아가려는 마음이다. 그것이 지금 우리의 자세이고 모두가 기억해야 할 광복이다. 두려움에 맞서는 포기하지 않는 용기. 광복 80년. 과거가 아닌 내일을 여는 희망찬 시작. 빛나는 발걸음. 새로운 길. 광복 80년.
저는 만 5살에 바이올린을 시작했는데요. 바이올린 소리를 워낙 좋아했어서 그 특유의 따뜻함과 약간 사람의 목소리 같은 목소리를 갖고 있거든요, 바이올린이. 저는 무대에 올랐을 때보다는 이제 혼자 연습할 때 더 큰 희열을 느끼는데 제가 표현하고자 하는 음악이 잘 나왔을 때 그때 가장 큰 기쁨을 느끼는 것 같아요. 그래서 저만의 색깔을 어떻게 하면 찾아갈 수 있을까 그걸 제일 많이 고민하는 것 같아요. 아무래도 연습을 할 때는 이제 생각과 고민을 많이 하는 반면에 무대에서 연주할 때는 정말 머릿속을 비우고 아무 생각도 안 하려고 하는 것 같아요. 무대에서는 자유롭게 콩쿨 무대도 저만의 독주라고 생각하는 자세를 가지려고 하고 있어요. 사실 바이올린과는 거의 제 인생의 대부분을 같이 해왔기 때문에 저를 힘들게 할 때도 많지만 제가 가장 사랑하고 아끼는 존재입니다. 작곡가가 전달하고 싶은 메시지와 또 제 자신이 관객들에게 전달하고 싶은 메시지를 모두 다 설득력 있게 잘 전달할 수 있는 그런 연주자가 되고 싶습니다.
도시는 세계와 연결되어 문화를 창조했고 새로운 것을 받아들였다.
함께여서 우리는 더 자유롭고 더 멀리 갈 수 있어.
닫힌 문이 아니라 열린 질문으로.
나에게 에이펙은
자유,
융합,
국제성,
다양성,
포용,
개발.
신라의 정신이 에이펙 2025로 이어집니다.
Welcome to Within the Frame, where we bring the most pressing issues across the globe into focus. I'm Kim Mo-gyun. With just months to go before APEC 2025, the host city of Gyeongju and neighboring Busan are racing to prepare. Beyond infrastructure upgrades and hotel expansions, both cities are framing the event as a rare opportunity to reposition themselves as global tourism destinations. Now, this comes as South Korea sees sharp rise in inbound travel fueled by K-content and shifting global tourism patterns, and as Seoul's dominance in visitor numbers continue to raise concerns over regional imbalance. As 21 economies prepare to gather under one roof, local leaders and tourism experts now face a critical challenge: how to turn this event into a sustainable long-term growth engine. For a deeper discussion on this, we invite Brian King, professor and head of hospitality at Hotel Management and Tourism at Texas A&M University. A big welcome.
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요. Now, also joining us is Shin Hak-sun, assistant professor at the Department of Tourism from South Korea's Hanyang University. Good to see you, Professor.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for having me here again.
Thank you. Now, let's begin our discussion right away. First with Professor King. We want to start with a background. So why is hosting this global event like APEC such a meaningful opportunity for regional tourism, especially in a city like Gyeongju?
So I visited Gyeongju for the first time this summer, and honestly, even though I've been to Korea several times before, I was not able to pronounce the name. I had not heard of the city, and it was only when I actually visited that I started to learn a little bit more about it. So I think internationally, Gyeongju is not such a familiar word even to say. And this hosting of APEC is a very major and prominent international media event. So I think that this hosting not only gives the city the experience of all the logistics, but it also creates brand familiarity. So it's a wonderful opportunity to put this heritage city really on a global stage.
Really, that really does set the tone when a city like Gyeongju gets the global stage. It's going to be a very big moment for the city as well. Now, following that, with just weeks to go, changes are already underway on the ground. Professor Shin, what kinds of tourism-related shifts are we seeing across APEC host regions, whether it's hotel bookings or shuttle operations?
Yeah, I think the changes can be categorized into tangible and intangible changes. Tangible changes primarily involve improvement to the city's overall infrastructure, including its tourism facilities. In preparation for the APEC summit, significant upgrades are being made to roadways and overall infrastructure, while key venues such as the convention center, media center, and exhibition halls are either being remodeled or newly constructed. The APEC summit is expected to attract approximately 20,000 participants. To accommodate this scale, it is estimated that up to 7,700 hotel rooms will be required per day. As a result, many accommodation facilities in Gyeongju are undergoing renovation, and some of them are being newly developed. On the intangible side, there are ongoing efforts to elevate the value of Gyeongju's tourism assets by transforming cultural heritage into experiential content and marketable tourism products. Additionally, the city is implementing intelligent transport systems and developing new cultural programs such as curated art tours. Most importantly, the successful hosting of the event is expected to foster a strong sense of civic pride among residents and significantly enhance the city's global brand image.
Right, so a lot of efforts are already being made, and it seems like we're seeing the ripple effects already. Now, since this summit is functionally shared between host city Gyeongju and also nearby Busan city, it seems like collaboration is very, very important at this point. Professor Shin, how can those two cities work together to create a cohesive multi-stop experience for visitors?
Yes, it's important to understand the bigger picture behind Gyeongju hosting the APEC summit. While Gyeongju is the main host city, APEC is a large international event at the national level. So honestly, it's hard for one single city to handle everything alone. That's why support and cooperation from other major cities like Seoul, Incheon, Busan, and Jeju are very important. In fact, the leaders' meetings will be held in Gyeongju, but many related events will take place in other cities. Busan in particular plays a key supporting role because it's geographically close to Gyeongju. For example, the APEC Energy Ministerial meeting will be held in Busan this August. Also, if Gyeongju runs out of hotel rooms or transportation capacity during the main summit, some participants may stay in Busan or other cities close to Gyeongju. Obviously, APEC will bring benefits not only to Gyeongju, but also to nearby cities. And since many participants will take time to travel and explore other regions during or after the event, it's also a good chance to attract tourists and boost the local economy in places like Busan. Specifically, I think Gyeongju and Busan need to promote joint tourism programs, for example, multi-city travel packages or cultural exchange tours. Since the cities complement each other so well, we can offer visitors a more balanced and immersive experiences, something traditional, something modern, or something cultural. This kind of intercity tourism cooperation can really help reposition Southeast Korea as a powerful tourism cluster, not just a one-time event destination.
Exactly. So if they get it right, it could be a good model for other regional pairings to look forward to in the future as well. Yeah. Now, this naturally brings us to APEC's core value, of course, balanced regional development. Professor King, how can this idea be applied to Korea's tourism landscape where international visitors still tend to, kind of concentrate in central Seoul?
Yes, well, let's think back to when Seoul hosted the Olympics in 1988. I think the rest of the world was not so familiar with Korea at that time, and the successful hosting really put Korea and Seoul on the map. So here we are 37 years later, and I think Gyeongju, as a regional Korean destination hosting a major international event, will do something similarly. And certainly Seoul still hosts most of the cultural institutions in Korea. But if you're going to present something that kind of embodies the best of traditional Korea and the modern side of it, Gyeongju is a really good balance. And as Professor Shin said, this event should help with southeastern Korea, with the Gyeongsang province, to just raise the awareness and to spread visitation around just through that familiarity, whether it's in long-haul markets such as the United States or more regional markets like China, Japan, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. And then people can visit via, say, cruise ship, or they can come in through Busan International Airport, or they can arrive by train. So this is a very good way of spreading tourism across the Korean peninsula.
Right, it does seem like a very important moment that can kind of shift attention to other areas as well. Now, let's also shift our discussion to content and culture as well. Professor King, Korean media and storytelling are clearly driving new types of travel demand. So we wonder now, how can places like Gyeongju turn their own cultural identity into tourism appeal, especially for foreign individual travelers?
So there's a local and global dimension of this. I've been recently exploring the Hanyo in Jeju-do, and that Hanyo phenomenon has really gone global with coverage on Apple TV and global media, and that's the story about these divers that is something quite local, but with UNESCO Cultural Heritage designation has really gone global. And I think with the amazing landscape in Gyeongju that there's a lot of storytelling that can go in there, whether it's through K-pop, contemporary, or whether it's traditional dramas from the Silla dynasty. It's the tomb complex, the Son et Lumière evening events in the locality. So I agree that storytelling is very important. And also, as Professor Shin has said, the local population, the civic engagement. There are many local stories that can be told about what it's like to live in Gyeongju and that region. So I think that the APEC Summit provides a platform to move ahead with that type of storytelling.
Right. So culture really has become the new currency, and regions that know how to package it will definitely have an edge, and we'll look forward for that for Gyeongju City as well. Now, looking ahead to after the summit, it seems like sustainability becomes a bigger question. Professor Shin, what strategies should host cities focus on to keep tourism both resilient and also responsible for the long run?
Yeah, I believe this APEC summit should serve as a platform to showcase the future and vision of tourism. The theme of the event, which is building a sustainable tomorrow, connect, innovate, prosper, clearly reflect this direction. We need to highlight what sustainable and socially responsible tourism looks like in practice. In fact, tourism can play a meaningful role in addressing major global issues such as inequality, exclusion, discrimination, and social stratification that affect not only Korea but the entire world. In my opinion, one way to approach this is through ESG-based strategies. For example, we can introduce eco-friendly tourism sites and operations, along with programs that help reduce tourist carbon footprint during the event. We can also demonstrate how the benefits of tourism can be shared with local communities, creating experiences where both residents and visitors feel included and fulfilled. It's also important to feature tourism products that are locally designed and economically circulate within the region. In this way, tourism becomes a tool for inclusive growth and community empowerment. Above all, the event should offer more than just a series of formal meetings. It should encourage participants to reflect on the future of humanity and the role of tourism in building a more sustainable and responsible world.
Right, so it seems continuous efforts to promote the city's products and also experiences would be very important. Now, this ties directly to the physical investments being made from eco-restoration projects to upgrades at HICO. Professor King, how can these types of infrastructure be turned into permanent community and tourism assets after APEC finishes?
Well, starting with HICO, the upgrading of the convention facility, this is an important, dry run. It sets, it shows the proof that a city like Gyeongju is capable of delivering something for the most demanding international and domestic visitors at a very high standard. So it becomes evidence or proof that Gyeongju can sit on the global stage and can deliver in a very professional manner. So I think the upgrade to that facility, the capability of handling these large visitor numbers is really important. As Professor Shin has mentioned, there's also a lot of upgrading to the experience for the visitor. It's not so much on the tangible, but I was very impressed by the fact that the taxi drivers have apps, translation apps. So it means that when those who are less familiar with Korean language, both spoken and written, they can get into a cab and they can engage with a local person and they can communicate clearly where they're going. That type of small-scale upgrade becomes really important because we can have really great tourism infrastructure and sites, but the visitor needs to, as a human being, needs to feel comfortable that they can move around, that the language is not a barrier for them. So I see, and I observed also that the roads were being upgraded, the hotel improvements, and then the tourism industry, they're doing some of the interpretation, the logistics of bringing people in. So I see really good momentum there. And I was also impressed by the establishment of the committee in the lead up to the hosting. That brings all the stakeholders together and it creates more of a seamless experience for the visitors.
Right, so enhancing visitors' experience, be it small or big efforts, would be very important and helpful, of course. Now, speaking of Gyeongju's efforts, we already know that Busan City has already hosted several APEC-related ministerials this year. Professor Shin, what role can large-scale MICE events like these play in developing regional tourism beyond just a short-term boost?
Yeah, I think large-scale MICE events like the APEC meeting can do much more than just bring short-term visitors. They can really help build a long-term tourism brand for the city. A good example is Da Nang City, Vietnam. After hosting the APEC summit in 2017, the Da Nang city gained a lot of global attention. It used that opportunity to improve its infrastructure, build high-quality hotels, and promote its beautiful attractions and culture. Since then, Da Nang has grown into one of the most popular tourist destinations in Southeast Asia, not just for leisure travelers, but also for international conferences and events. In the same way, Gyeongju and other cities in South Korea can use this APEC event to show the world what makes the city special. These events bring global leaders, media coverage, and international interest. If managed well, they can help build a strong positive image of the city that lasts well beyond the event itself. And also, as I mentioned before, these events push the city to improve transportation systems, tourism services, and local partnerships. These upgrades stay in place and support long-term tourism growth. So in short, big international events like APEC Summit help create global visibility, improve the city, and build a tourism brand.
All right, right, definitely. We think we have a very short technical difficulty at the end of the question, but we got the gist of your answers, Professor Shin. Now, and before we conclude our discussion tonight, let's ask one more question to Professor King. When the event actually ends, the real legacy building begins, and what kind of long-term blueprint is needed to turn APEC 2025 into a lasting engine for regional tourism growth?
Well, I think an important part is you need to have whatever the planning is regionally to fit with the broader Korean and Asia Pacific. I think the plan needs to take account of the different market sources. So clearly the domestic Korean market's always going to be the most important. Then your regional markets, Hong Kong, Taiwan, China, Japan, connectivity, making sure that these markets are well catered for with language and other provision. And then you'll have long-haul markets like the US, which are important, but they don't generate the volume. So I think a plan which reaches out to the world, but is practical in that it recognizes that the national profile is the most important, and then with the regional and APEC, because the countries are participating are the key source markets, that's going to be a great starting point.
So in the end, what matters most is how APEC lives on after the summit, and it could be the start of something much bigger for South Korea's other regions as well. But we'll have to conclude our discussion here for tonight. Thank you so much for your time and for your insights, Professor King.
감사합니다.
감사합니다. And of course, Professor Shin, we really appreciate it.
It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
And that'll be all from us on Within the Frame. Be sure to tune in again next time as we continue to explore the stories that matter. Until then, stay informed and engaged.
Arirang TV is conducting an overseas TV viewer survey to provide you with a better global broadcast service. Share your valuable feedback on the Arirang TV website www.arirang.com or mobile application. Survey participants will be selected at random to receive special gifts. 2025 Arirang Overseas TV Viewer Survey. We look forward to hearing from you.
하지 못하고 아무도 관심 없는 그림이 되겠지만 달콤한 색감은 감추지 못해 터지고 있어. 매일은 말을 걸어봐야지. 지어낸 동화의 끝보다 완벽하게 달콤한 꿈 속에 아름다운 이 밤에 영원히 갇힌 채 반짝이는 저 언젠가만한 이런 기분도 신이 나서 날아갈 정도로 웃었던 날도 사랑스럽고 소중하게 기울 수 있도록
Change the way you start skincare. 7 vegan peptide, maximum benefits for your skin. And amplify the effect of the next skincare step. Boosting, glowing, and brightening. Effortless care. Visible results. 7 vegan peptide booster. Mizone.